we need to meet. We need to get together. Makes sense. Now, there's a couple things. How many of you took the client and actually had dinner or lunch with this person? You went to Bones. Was it good? I just want to make sure it was good.
I was it, Joey.
Yeah, was it Joey?
It's dry aged.
Dry aged. That's what I thought.
So good.
So, a lot of you may have said, man, I don't know if I have the time to do that. I've got all these other things to do. This is another example of the urgent and important side. You know, once again, this is the customer, and I know you all are a very customer-centric organization, so taking the time to go and have that lunch with that client, have that good face time, because aren't you in another bid? Isn't there another bid coming up with this client at some point? There's another scenario that I want you to think about. What about the superintendent? Were we concerned? Do we have any issues with the superintendent? No, it was Mike. Mike's your superintendent. Not to be confused with Matt, Motormouth Matt. So Mike was the superintendent, and maybe some of you skipped over the line. There's kind of an important line. What was that?
Very frazzled.
Frazzled. And I know it's a very, I don't know, it's a strong word. But this guy's probably been, let's put it in betting vernacular.
We fired him.
He needs a little love.
We fired him. Well, this may be that superintendent that's doing all the night work. So he's been out there pulling all kinds of all-nighters, literally and figuratively, for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So how do you manage the customer and Mike at the same time? Because you want to go to the job, spend some time with Mike, super, but you also know you got to meet with the customer. Plus, you also got plenty of paperwork to do, and you got to make phone calls. So,
Make the phone calls on your ride.
there you go. That's hands-free, of course,
Hands-free.
hands-free, gotcha. But what about Mike? I don't know if you heard, take him to lunch with the owner.
Fire him afterwards.
Exactly, we can tell him later. Now, here's an opportunity. I know, it's pretty stiff. Here's an opportunity to sit with Mike in the customer's presence and say, hey, you know, this project's going well, and it's Mike. Mike is the one. We can kind of maybe inflate some egos. More importantly, thank Mike for his service.
Yeah, that'll boost up the morale and he'll feel appreciated, valued and stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. Isn't it funny though, we're a fairly macho industry, minus obviously the ladies in the room, but for the most part, it's a fairly macho business. You know, but yet, we have a situation here where a superintendent isn't feeling the love. How often do we see that in companies? I see it all the time. I hear, well, it's not me, but it'd be sure nice to get some word of appreciation one time. But not me, you know, it's those other guys. No, it's everybody. Everybody likes to feel appreciated.
I just want to feel the love.
I just want to feel love, that's it.
I love you, Alan.
I just want to be loved.
Especially since you put your trash in the right place.
The thing is, folks, you got to be genuine, you got to mean it, and here's an opportunity to do it with the right audience. So you can, remember I told you you can't multitask, and that was where you sit with the computer and talk to someone at the same time? This is one example where you can multitask, because you're accomplishing 2 goals at the same time, and that's a great thing. By the way, folks, this thing that I gave you, if you say, boy, Greg, where can I get that fancy spreadsheet that you got there? I showed you. It's a thing called Outlook. Because remember, I'm a Microsoft salesman. No, I'm just joking. My point is, you have, and hopefully you also factored in things like the fluff when it comes to your traffic, phone calls. You know, how far are we from the job site and the client meeting? Do we go, okay, it's 30 minutes, so let me leave at 8 for a meeting at 8:30? Is that a good thing to do? Well, no, it's also in Atlanta, so it's going to be a little chaotic. And it's going to be a parking lot in about an hour. So my point is, you got this tool. You all are very smart. Now you have to figure out how to do all of this stuff. Which brings us, I was going to pose for this, my crouching tiger, hidden dragon, but I opted not to. However, what's that? I know, I didn't want to show her up. I mean, but my point is, we talk about this thing called work-life balance. And everything in the next section is your homework assignment. Because, as I said, you're more than just project manager, superintendent, accountant, estimator, blah, blah, blah. You're all of those things up there. And what importance do all these things mean to you? Technically, your family and all those things should be very important, but we also got to work to support said family. But how do we do the balancing act? So, the thing that I wanted you to think about for a moment is what you are, and that's that core purpose. You know, I want to be the greatest Gregg that I can possibly be. I know that sounds a far-fetched way of putting it. But what does that mean? When you kind of go out to this bottom baseline, that's the day-to-day stuff. That's me making phone calls, me exercising, me getting on a plane, taking my wife to dinner. Those are the activities. But all of these things build. And when I think about going to the gym, or better yet, when I play tennis or practice tennis, you know, the idea is I want to be a better tennis player one day, you know, and move up in my league and get better. Well, obviously, by training and just getting on the treadmill, that's a sequence of those events. Not obviously the big picture, but once again, it's about the journey, not simply this destination. I don't just wake up tomorrow morning and, oh, I'm the next Andre Agassi or you know, Steph Curry or whoever the other great tennis players are. I got to slowly evolve to that, and that's why this day-to-day stuff is so important. And I said, having this personal development plan. How are you going to make this stuff happen? How are you going to do it? What does that look like? So what I've given you here in your personal development plan workbook is a starting point. Because I know all of these categories are not equal to everybody in here. For instance, you may say, Gregg, I'm not married. I don't have a family, or my parents don't live here. I'm just, you know, okay, that's fair. Some of you may say, I got 12 kids. You know, that's a big part of my life. But education, civic, you can say civic and or church, health. Some of you, you know, I know Mr. Zito, he's pretty darn ripped. I assume he does a lot of exercise or eats healthy or all of the above. Shame on him. Whatever that, I'm sure that's an important part of his life. And then lastly, work. Not lastly meaning, oh yeah, and this thing called betting. It's all of these things make up everybody in this room in some form or fashion. The question is, what does that mean? So each one of these first has a goal. So for instance, if we look at, let's pick the health goal, because I've used that one several times. You know, what defines success? You know, first thing we need to be very specific about our goals. You know, and I call it the SMART, actually Mr. Drucker, the famous time management guru, called it the SMART system. Specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time frame based. So when I set a goal, I want to be healthier. Well, what the hell does that mean? If I say to you, I want to lose 25 pounds. Okay, does it check all those boxes? It's very specific, it's measurable, it's pretty achievable, it's realistic. Maybe I need to say, I want to lose 25 pounds by September 1st or October 1st. Okay, now at least we have the time frame in there. But do my goals meet those 5 check marks? And now I can say, yep, that makes sense. So what defines success? And I gave you some examples up here. Now, run a 5K, lose 25 pounds. Education, maybe some of you want to go get your MBA, get your GED, get your PE license or whatever. Civic, contribute 40 hours of community service, non-court ordered, of course. Complete a term as the president of the ABC. The next step is where the rubber meets the road, because this is the things that I talked about earlier. So in each one of your homework assignments, I've given you these 5 goal-setting pages. So finding what those goals are in those major headings. So as I said before, if I want to lose weight, about 25 pounds by October 1st, great. Join a gym. I need to join a gym in the next 2 weeks. Buy a pair of sneakers. Get a personal trainer. You know, maybe buy some videotapes. Develop a workout plan. Oh yeah, and do it. And it's all these wonderful things. Sometimes we get caught up in the planning. You got to execute it. And most importantly, what's going to hold you accountable? Because by at least putting the dates down, I'm putting some targets, but at the end of the day, we need to start to see some transformation in whatever it is. Think back to my friends at Harvard that I talked about earlier. Those that thought about their goals. For instance, the problem with New Year's resolutions. How many made New Year's resolutions? Okay, is that because you weren't going to keep them? The answer is probably. Think about it. We're in a drunken stupor on the night, on the night before we're going to start. I gotta eat better. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to exercise. And then it comes, you woke up, you're hungover, and you go, oh, I got to eat a cheeseburger. Boom, we're done. Point is, thinking it through and coming up with a definitive action plan will get you to where you need to be. Folks, in 4 sessions, I've relatively fed you through a fire hose. This is by far what I would call complete. And what I mean by that is, I'm not releasing, well, I am releasing into the wild, but more importantly, I'm here as a resource. So if there's something you're curious about, hey Greg, what was that book title? Where should I get more education on finance? What was that book title you mentioned about time management? Reach out to me. You've got my ugly picture and my phone number in the back. Darcy knows how to get a hold of me, and we're all part of the same family here. But folks, what you can't let happen is this stuff die on the vine. Put another way, we need to make this stuff part of Benning long term. And obviously our leadership needs to continue to push us and do the right thing for the organization, but we're all part of the solution. And part of this transformation is taking what we learned here today and putting it into practice. Even if it's just a couple simple things, like coming up with a better task list, managing email better, doing better pre-job planning, getting feedback for post-job reviews. Folks, this has obviously been an enjoyment to get back and see 2.0 of Benning. I look forward to seeing 3.0. Hopefully, I'll still be working and alive, but the point is 3.0 for me means it's the next group of you, and that's because we've all moved up into the organization. It's been a deep honor to get to spend this time with you, and once again, I'm not really going anywhere, but I want to make sure that you know to reach out to me. More importantly, I want to give Darcy a big hand because one, she's been instrumental in not only kind of getting a lot of the background stuff together, but more importantly, kind of getting me here. So thank you, Darcy, for everything. And obviously a big thank you to Rice and Channing and Lane, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Anthony and all of it. I mean, these guys are the ones that said we need to make sure we're spending enough time developing you because you're the front line and we need to keep this thing trucking. So also for all my nighttime folks or daytime folks, depending on which way you look at it, thank you for all of you coming out. I know this is a lot, especially when you got a million things going. So keep up the good work. Have a great 4th of July weekend. We're almost there. And more importantly, a great weekend starting today. So.